How many conflict avoiders here today? Can you put your hand up high? I just want to see if I'm in a place of, yeah. How many people are just like love conflict? Put your hand up. No one. Okay, Yaku and Damien at the back. I want to find out, have you ever been in a situation just like this where you had something that you knew you had to share? It was pressing on your heart. You knew you had to share it with this person, but you didn't share it because you just felt, man, I'm going to hurt that person's feelings. Have you ever been in that situation before? Maybe it's something like this. Maybe it's when someone is wearing something crazy, all right? They just look so bad. And you just, inside of you, you know that, hey, if I just share this with them, but you don't want them to feel bad, so you keep it to yourself. Maybe it's that occasion where you see that green thing stuck between their teeth, right? And maybe it's on their cheek or whatever, and you know, like, oh, it's just disturbing you so much, but you just feel that tension where, oh man, I just can't share it with them. Have you felt that before? Experienced that before? You're scared that, hey, you're going to let them down. Maybe it's like this, and actually, it's when you're on stage and you can see that the person has their fly down, all right? And like, you feel that tension, and I'm hoping it's not down today, all right? I'll check. No, it's good, all right? But there's that tension, and you know you need to share it, but you feel embarrassed, like, oh, what's that going to do to Wes if I, that's going to be even more embarrassing. Maybe it's when someone invites you over for dinner, and from the very first bite that you take, you're like, man, this is just so bad. Maybe it's every night in your home where you experience that. I don't know. Could be. Maybe it's when your wife or your girlfriend, she asks that question, does this dress make me look fat? All right. Don't know what the answer is. These are some examples of some trivial, like, just situations and scenarios that we find ourselves in every single day where, hey, there's something maybe pressing on our heart and we love the person so much and we know, hey, we should actually share it, but we just, in this tension, in this place where, hey, we just feel too bad. We don't want to let them down. Ben did such a great job of that, We share it with everyone else. We share it with our friends or with our colleagues or with everyone else, but we just don't share it with the person because we're too afraid to maybe let them down. Or maybe those situations are a bit more consequential. Maybe those situations are something like this. It's when a family member or loved ones, their health is deteriorating and they're not exercising, they're not eating healthy, and they're gaining weight. And you love that person so much, but you feel in a conflict, in a tension where you just don't think you can share it with them because you're scared you're going to hurt their feelings. Can you relate? Maybe it's when a friend's substance abuse is growing gradually daily. And you can see the effects. You can see the trauma that it's bringing in their life. And actually there's this tension inside of you and you've got to say something. But hey, you've also got bad habits and your own addictions in your own life. So you rather avoid it and hope it fades away. Maybe it's when a good friend of yours continues to flirt with a married spouse. And you can see it, and you can see it. It's right in front of you. It's all there, and you know that this is not going down a great place. But yet you just don't know how to have that conversation with your friend because you're afraid. You're scared of what that can lead to. Maybe it's when your partner's anger has increased so badly that your home is requiring more and more maintenance constantly. This past week, I listened to a podcast where a pastor was sharing how he covered up a hole in the wall at home after he lost his temper with his wife. Or maybe it's a slow fade, and you see your valued friend attending church less and less. And you know, in your heart and in your soul, you can just see that, hey, if they were in this space, they'd be amongst people who actually really care for them, but it's a slow fade, and slowly but surely they're drifting. What do we do in these situations? Because they're hard. What do we do in these situations? What do we do when we have to manage this tension here between grace and truth? When, hey, we care so much about them, we appreciate them so much, we love them so much that we want to just pour out our grace continually over their life and in their life. But at the same time, we see, hey, this truth that, hey, if something doesn't change, we can see that this is going to hurt. This is going to destroy. I don't know how you are when you have to manage this tension, but if you're anything like me, I'll tell you what I do sometimes. I give them more grace. More grace. When I see, hey, it's not going well, I give them more grace. And the reason I give them more grace is because I actually just don't want to do anything. Sometimes I just want to avoid the issue. I just want to hope and pray even that it will just go away, that it will magically just disappear. Like almost like someone in a building that's burning down, just like, oh no, I just want to love them. I just want to say they're okay. Just you're good. You're good. Just you're good in the building. I just want to avoid it and hope something will magically happen. Or maybe we remain silent. And in this way, when we remain silent, we think, hey, if I just don't say anything, then they won't feel bad, right? Then I don't have to worry about this tension, because if I just don't say anything, it'll be okay. But the problem is that we forget that actually silence is actually communication. Silence is actually communication, and it's non-verbal communication. In other words, there's this proverb. It says the silence gives consent. He ought to have spoken when he was able to. You see, and actually, when we see our loved ones or our family or our friends going through difficult seasons in life, and actually we can see they're headed for a cliff, by not saying something actually means we are actually saying something. And it's that we're okay. We're good. If we don't challenge this tension between grace and truth. Now, if you've been here for the past couple of weeks, we've explored this topic of grace. And there is no doubt that I love this topic of grace, because it honestly, over the past few weeks, we've seen that grace covers. That grace is something that we as a church don't want anyone to miss out on. That grace, honestly, when Kira was here, she showed us that grace actually, through friends who actually care, it can bring forgiveness and healing to your life. We saw that, hey, grace actually leads us to a place of repentance. To a place where, hey, we can see God, and as we sort of repent of the weight of sin and what's going on in our lives, there's this healing, there's this rescuing. There's this actually, the shame and the regret just disappears and fades away. And last week, I loved Jordan as he shared about grace. It's not fragile. It's big enough to deal with any situation or circumstance that you face in life. It is sufficient for you. And when you're weak, that's when God's grace is strong. But today, I cannot help but communicate grace without this other part of truth. Grace and truth, they go together. If we separate them, we'll do what so many churches have done before. We've missed the mark of what God really wants us to understand about who He is. Churches have struggled with grace and truth from the very beginning. I've been in a church when I grew up that focused so much on the truth that actually there was a point that I never, ever, ever, ever saw what the grace of God really means. If we're so on one-sided, this takes us to a place of legalism. And it takes us to a place where we actually miss what God is actually wanting us to see. However, on the other end, if we just have all the grace and everything is just about grace, we actually deceive ourselves. And we actually have a misunderstanding of who God really is. Grace and truth. Often you might have experienced grace and truth. And in different ways, like we know, maybe as you sit here today, you have a parent, right? Maybe one of them is grace and the other one is truth, right? I know this because when I was younger, I know if I wanted something or if I wanted to go out, I'd always go to my mom because she was more gracious, all right? And unfortunately, hopefully, she would persuade my dad, who was very truthful, all right? But we need the balance. Have you experienced grace and truth? Maybe you're sitting in church today and you can see yourself in one of these categories, all right? You can see yourself as, hey, I'm someone who's just full of grace. That's who I am. Always full of grace. Or maybe you can see yourself as, man, I'm into truth. Like, I'll just tell it like it is. And we miss the grace part. Which one are you? Are you both? Are you on one side? Are you grace? Or are you truth? We've messed this up so badly for ages. And unfortunately, if we do this, we miss out on what God really wants us to see when it comes to who He is. Our church here at Gracegate has this mission. Gracegate exists to share God's love and saving grace with our community so that people become fully devoted followers of Christ. Now, if you've been in this space for a long time, you will know that, hey, man, this is everything we are about, all right? We pursue this with a relentless passion that we want to share God's love and saving grace with our community. We want people to know and to see and discover God's grace. We want them to see how God's grace just covers and it empowers us. And we want our whole community actually then to actually become fully devoted followers of Christ. And the reason we want that actually to happen is because we strongly believe that if you're following Jesus, your life will be better. His teachings have so much wisdom in them that you will honestly live a life with fewer regrets. So this is how we do it. But if we just try to share God's love and saving grace without the truth, is that even possible? Is that possible? How can we share grace if people don't know what the truth is? If people don't know what the truth is, then they won't need grace, right? If I don't know what the truth is, then why would I even need grace? If I don't know that I need forgiveness, then why would I even want forgiveness? Watch this. This explains it really well.
Hey, bro, look, check it out. Labradoodle.
What?
Yeah, right down there.
Oh, I love good breed.
So good.
Yes, half lab, half moodle.
Wait, what?
Incredible.
Noodle?
Yeah.
No, that's
Moodle.
not a thing. Ever.
No, it totally is. A moodle.
Isn't that Dave from Econ?
Oh, yeah.
What is he doing up here?
He's probably just enjoying the view, man.
Wait, isn't Dave blind? We gotta warn him. Hey, Dave.
Whoa, bro. What are you doing? You can't just tell Dave what to do.
Wait, why?
Are you blind?
No.
Okay, so then you don't know what Dave's gone through. You can't really relate to him, man. Just let him be. He's totally fine.
He's literally slipping right now.
Yeah, wait, okay, you're gonna get all up on him for slipping. Like everyone slips from here and there.
I don't
It's
care
no
if he
reason
slips.
for
I'm
us
just trying to keep a
point
guy from falling off a cliff.
No. Okay, listen. What I think you need to do right now is you just need to love him. You need to not point out
What does
his
that have to do with
weaknesses.
anything?
It has everything to do with everything. Okay, like if you point out his weaknesses, he won't feel loved. He won't feel accepted. Let him feel
I'm just trying to keep a
accepted.
guy from going off the cliff.
No,
He's not even stopping. Hey,
You're
Dave.
not gonna- no, whoa, bro, stop it. You speak out against blind people. So many
is
people will be
wrong
upset
with
with you.
you?
No, so many people won't like you. But also, what if he doesn't like us anymore? You've ever thought about that?
Dave will be dead. I need to say, hey,
No,
Dave,
no.
Dave.
No.
Is someone there?
Yeah. Hey, Dave, how's it going? It's Charlie from school.
Oh, hey, man.
Stop doing this for Dave's birthday.
Maybe you can help me out. I seem to have lost the trail somewhere. You want to tell me if I'm going the right way?
Maybe he is lost. You're right. We should still just encourage him. Yeah, hey, no, Dave, you're doing great, man. I love that you're out here, man, too. I'm proud of you, being out on this trail. You're doing great, man. You're doing great.
Oh. Okay, thanks, man. Guess I am going the right way.
Watch, he'll figure it out. You just gotta love him through his problems. Yeah, you got it, man. Dave, what are you doing? What? Dave?
So good, eh? Which friend are you? So encouraging to see those guys just cheering Dave on as he takes his last steps in life. Can you relate? As a church, yeah, our whole vision and passion comes from one of the greatest commandments that Jesus gave all his disciples. And this is what it says. It says, hey, I want you to love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another, and by this everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. Yeah, Jesus is speaking to his disciples, and he says, hey, I want you guys to love one another, all right? I want you to love one another. And this is our mission. This is our heart. This is why Gracegate exists. And he says, hey, if you do this, you are my disciples. You are fully devoted followers of Jesus if you love one another. But one of the things I think we miss is this part here where he says, hey, I want you to love one another as I have loved you. As I have loved you. I believe that maybe the reason we have this struggle between grace and truth is because we have a misguided understanding of what God's love is. Because we live in a culture today that hey, if we even, just challenge someone on the way that they're walking or going off the cliff, we're seen as less compassionate people. We're seen as judgmental people. We're seen as if we actually people who don't really care about Dave. We have a warped understanding of what true love is. But what does this love actually look like? What is this love that Jesus actually illustrates here? What does it actually look like? What is it full of? John, one of the guys who actually lived with Jesus, he explains this and he tries to tell us exactly what this love is full of. He explains it like this in John chapter 1. He says this, and he's describing Jesus here as the Word. He says, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. And understand this, when John is writing this is him. He's included in that us because Jesus actually came in his time. He said, hey, Jesus, the Word became flesh. He was God, but he became flesh and he dwelt among us, all right? He says, we have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father. John's writing here and he says, hey, I have actually been an eyewitness to what God's love looks like through his Son, Jesus. I have seen it with my own eyes. I've walked alongside him. I've seen how he's treated people. I've seen it with my own eyes. And then he says this. He says, full of what? Grace and truth. He says, full of grace and truth. He doesn't say the balance of. He doesn't say just grace. He says, hey, I have seen the Word become flesh that has dwelt among us. And he was full, completely full of 100% grace and 100% truth. He goes on in verse 16 and he says, out of his fullness, in other words, out of this grace and truth, we have all received grace in place of grace already given. In other words, hey, we receive grace and grace and grace and grace out of this fullness of who Jesus is. Because Jesus is completely, 100% both grace and truth. And then he goes on and he says, for the law was given through Moses, the law that God actually gave Moses, and Moses brought it down on stones, and then all the other law, that was given through Moses. And then he says, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. You see, there's a tension here. And we live with this tension daily of how do we actually live this kind of love? How do we actually live like Jesus where he was completely 100% grace and 100% truth? This past week, I went to the Spark young adults get together, and I loved the discussions they had. They were speaking about the woman at the well, and it was a perfect example of, hey, grace and truth. Jesus going out of his way to meet someone in need who's got so much baggage from so many different relationships in her life. She's got so much sin and weight on her shoulders, but Jesus moves towards that. He climbs over obstacles to get to that person. 100% grace. And while he's sitting with that person, while he's at the well, he even reveals the truth of, hey, actually, you've had a few partners, you've been with a few husbands, and even the person you're with isn't your husband. But he offers her complete grace and truth. He says, hey, if you drink of the water that I'll give you, you'll never ever thirst again. We see another story in the Bible where Jesus is 100% grace and 100% truth when a woman is caught in adultery. And this woman is caught in adultery, and while she's dragged in front of Jesus and everyone wants to condemn her and throw stones at her, Jesus is 100% grace where he says, hey, I don't condemn you. I don't condemn you. I completely don't condemn you. But then 100% truth, and he says, hey, but go and sin no more. The perfect balance. And I want to tell you that if we live this out, if we live this out, truly live this out as a church and as a community, yeah, it is messy. It is messy. It is inconsistent. It is not fair. It is dirty. It has us at days where we're like, hey, what do we do in this situation? Do we give more grace? What do we do? Do we reveal truth? It is so messy. It is unfair. And that is exactly who Jesus was. Jesus, in his grace and truth, would walk into a place, he'd heal one person, and then he'd leave the others. He'd choose people. He was unfair. But he was 100% grace and truth. It's confusing. Honestly, if you've experienced it, if you've been around Gracegate, you would have picked up that, hey, this is weird. Like, surely, shouldn't that person have been told already? Like, really? Like, honestly. I mean, we've seen that again and again and again and again. Like, surely, come on. Who's going to actually give the truth? And at other times, we're like, hey, man, honestly, we just need to give more grace. If we could get the perfect balance of grace and truth. I know it's messy. I know it's hard. I know it will have you pulling your hair out. I know every day when we're doing life, if we have to practice this in our relationships, we won't be able to do it 100% by our own strength. And that's where I guess the hope comes in that, hey, everything we do in this community is based upon a figure who is Jesus Christ, who we gain access to 100% of his grace and 100% of his truth in our lives. The only reason I can stand up here and actually communicate the gospel is because, hey, I can claim this grace for my own life. And I can also claim the truth in my own life. At Gracegate, we've got some core values. And these core values, honestly, are our heartbeat. It's in our culture. It's who we are. And I want to read to you, someone wrote this about our core values a couple of years ago. And I want to read these core values out to you so you can understand a bit more of what lies behind these core values. We got 3: belonging, discovering, and engaging. It's our heartbeat. The first one, belonging. We value belonging. It says this is about a place that is safe, inviting, welcoming, and warm-hearted. I don't know, but every single day I can almost hear this echo in my head. People say, wow, this place, there's something different about it. Everyone's so welcoming. Everyone's so bubbly. It's a place where diversity and uniqueness are celebrated. And you know that is true. You know that is true. We have some really unique characters in this place, including the South Africans. It says you can come as you are. Honestly, you can. You can come to this place as you are. There's nothing you've got to fix about yourself. There's nothing you have to wear differently. You can come as you are. And it says, and you will receive the message that you are enough. You are enough because we live in grace. It says it's a place where people notice when you are there and notice when you are not. It is about God's unconditional love and unending forgiveness. And I want you to know that, hey, with this, sometimes we thrive at this, but other times we fail miserably at this. It says it's a place where we are all in it together without judgment, where we at the very least are prepared to work on our own prejudices, assumptions, and preconceived ideas to treat one another with dignity, just the way Jesus did. Respect, inclusion, and love. It's not about permissiveness, but it's about caring enough to actually walk with and not point at. That's our core value of belonging. We love that. Doesn't that sound good? It's like, hey, Dave walking off that cliff. No, we will go and walk step by step next to him and make sure he doesn't take that next step off the cliff. Belonging. Our second core value is discovering. And I love this word. It says here, it's exploration with purpose and surprise. It's about finding out, not knowing. And I can guarantee you that in this space, we don't know everything. We don't know. We're on a journey of discovering. Not just to discover, but an ongoing journey of discovering. It's new every day, an unending adventure. Sometimes it truly is an adventure, I can tell you. We may already think we know lots about God, or we may be right at the start wondering what it's all about. We may not be sure we even want to know or even care to know. We learn from each other all by ourselves. We can be guided when we need to, and we can be self-directed when that is more appropriate. It's how our relationship with God remains alive, developing, expanding. God may be constant, but our understanding should never, ever sit still. It's also about discovering ourselves and where we fit into all of it. Above all, it's exciting. We value discovering. We know that, hey, this space that we're in here is actually about discovering more, finding more truth in our lives so that we can actually be transformed, so that we can actually see God for who God truly is. We value discovering. And our last core value that we really hold on to is engaging. This is about taking part. It's about acting, connecting, and serving. It's the action that goes with the heart. It will be different for different people. It respects gifts, talents, temperaments, and interests. It honors both the individual and the group. It is about contribution and expressing caring. It can be practical or relational or spiritual. It's about not being an observer or commentator, but a participant. It's daring to jump in. We value engaging. In this space, we value engaging because we truly believe that, hey, once you have experienced God's grace, or even if you haven't experienced God's grace, you're in a perfect place where you can actually serve this community, where you can love one another as God has loved us. These are our core values, and honestly, these core values are what is in this culture. Can you see, if you've been around here, can you see these things lived out here at Gracegate? I surely think we can. I think the best thing about grace and truth is that when we have the perfect balance, 100%, the church is at its best. Andy Stanley says that, hey, if the church can actually get that right, that's when the church is at its very, very best. And I know I've been in churches and in environments that we don't get that 100% right, and we tend to sway to the one side or to the other. But I pray that we can continuously, and that we can work together, that we can engage together to actually get that 100% both grace and truth in all of our lives. God, today, we're in this space, and we know you're present here, God, and we know that you're speaking to us in ways that we need to hear. And God, I pray today that, hey, if we linger maybe more just to the grace, and we just want grace in our lives without the truth, that you can come and just reveal that to us and show us, hey, actually, it is the truth that can truly set you free, that can help you leverage your life and move forward in life. God, and if we're just too truthful at times with people, I pray that you will help us to actually be truthful, but in love. God, may we reflect Jesus, who was both grace and truth in this space, in this community, in a way that only you can empower us to do, God. So I pray for your presence. I pray for this community and each person who's part of this church or isn't part of this church, God, that you'll continually fill us with who you want us to be, is our prayer today in Jesus' name.